Last week, the latest edition of the FIFA series dropped worldwide, leading to a flood of opinions dispersing all across the internet. From casual players to professionals, opinions were scattered and varied about the gameplay. Some are absolutely in love with the new game, others not so much, to say the least. On Metacritic, the game has a favorably high rating from critics, but a low score, albeit from small sample size of users. So why is there this discrepancy? Is it a bad game? Is it objectively a bad game? Or is it a good game? In this video, I intend to explore the varying opinions that surround this new game to try and come to a more conclusive decision. Now, with that being said, this is obviously also just my opinion. However, by exploring both sides of the table, we can come to a more objective conclusion than, bro, this game is trash. So some of the biggest concerns from the community this year are goalkeeping, finishing inside the box, and passing in general. Now, goalkeeping and finishing kind of go hand in hand for obvious reasons, so that's basically one issue in and of itself. To me, it's a non-issue. Scoring in real-life soccer is supposed to be difficult. Often you see professional teams try several different ways to break down a defense because if you try the same thing over and over again, it becomes predictable and progressively easier to defend. When the attack is varied, you leave the defense guessing at all times and they cannot commit to one pattern of play. That being said, it is not impossible to score in this game, but it is certainly more difficult than it was last year, for example. The game is more realistic. You just can't lob the through balls behind the defensive line and have a one-on-one with your pacey striker every single time. In certain spots, you can score that way, just not every time. Inside the box, the best way to score is to slide the ball in front of the face of goal and have a runner run onto it, tap it in with a placed low shot. Or you can loft it into the box with your fullback or your wide winger and get a headed attempt with your striker or one of your center mids. Again, these are realistic scoring scenarios that you see over and over again in the real life game. So for the next part, I might sound a little salty, but I promise that's not my intention. But I've watched and played enough high-level matches of FIFA to understand how you had to play in previous years to score goals and win games. It was always about skill canceling and abusing bad game mechanics. A great example from last year is the drag back skill cancel. If you search here on YouTube for, quote, FIFA 21 drag back, close quote, you immediately find at least a dozen different tutorial videos on how to do and use the drag back move to score goals. Now, obviously, these FIFA content creators were making these videos because they knew that inherently as well. It's an unrealistic way to score goals in real life, and I'm glad it's not as prevalent this year so far. Last year, you could dominate possession, control the game, and still lose because people would sit back and then wait to send their pacey striker down in a straight line down the field. You could defend it to the best of your ability, and you would get hit with a drag back, cancel, and then concede. Again, obviously in real life you can dominate possession and still lose. That's not what I'm complaining about. But you aren't losing games because the opposing striker is dragging the ball back, then immediately pushing it back forward to send a piss missile top bins. The same goes for those lofted through balls that would work consistently over and over again last year. Again, that's obviously a much more realistic way to score goals, but you have to pick spots. So often I would see teams just send it from their right back all the way down the field and their striker would run onto it one-on-one with the keeper. Not to say that that can't happen in real life, because it certainly can, but how often do you realistically see that when you sit down to watch a Premier League game, La Liga game, any kind of Champions League game or international game? You don't. So all in all, as far as finishing goes and as far as goalkeeping goes, I don't have an issue with keepers saving shots that he's likely to save in real life. I also don't have a problem with the game making it harder to score this year. I would rather play a 1-0 or a 1-1 or a 2-1 or even a 2-2 game than playing 6-5, 7-4, those kind of score lines, because you don't see those score lines in real life. Sports games, since they've been starting to gain popularity over the past 25 years, have always had the aim of becoming more and more realistic. The other big issue that I've seen from the FIFA community so far this year has been passing. My guy Italian Stallion is a FIFA and football purist, but he has pointed out online his issues with the passing mechanics on the game. We even had a conversation on Twitter about it. I see where he's coming from 100% because he pointed out to me that and this is a quote, FIFA aim is not about choosing a trajectory. It's about aiming to tell who the game wants. And the game decides then a trajectory based off the context of the situation. What he means by that, by the context, is the position of the attackers, the position of the defenders, body positioning, the position of the ball, etc. So in other words, it's partially about making good decisions, but it's also about making the type of pass the game thinks will best get the ball there. More often than not this year, it's a simple A pass, which is the most basic and fundamental skill to learn in the game of football, the push pass. Personally, the issue that I've had with passing so far this year is just figuring out what pass to play in what situation. Some situations require that lofted through ball. Sometimes it's a regular through, other times it's double tapping through or A, sometimes it's a regular cross, and so on and so forth. You guys know how many different kinds of passes this game offers you. The other thing that I want to address should be fairly obvious, but at this stage in the game, whether you play foot or pro clubs, your foot players or your pro does not have the passing stats required for the much more difficult passes. So again, obviously, if you have better passing stats, the better the quality of the pass that you make in game. As far as pro clubs goes, me and my teammates have struggled with through balls a lot. And one thing that I figured out is while adjusting one of my builds early on this year, I noticed the vernacular of the vision stat had changed. This is what it reads. It increases your ability to play accurate and intricate through passes. Therefore, if you have a bad vision stat, the chances that the through pass that you played going where you think it should are much less likely. Obviously, this can be absolutely frustrating because you see something and that's why you're making the pass, but how often do you see a through pass get cut out or overhit in real life? To answer that question, it's typically pretty frequently. It's easier to pass to feet than it is just to pass into space in a lot of circumstances. If you're passing into space, if you have a sweeper or a sweeper keeper, they will read that pass because they're reading the play multiple passes ahead of play. So it's easy for them to sometimes cut those passes out. It's easier to pass to feet than it is to pass to space. So at the end of the day, I'm okay with this. And especially in pro clubs, a lot of players use striker builds. And the reality of the striker build is that the passing stats are the worst stats they have besides defense. Strikers are goal scorers at the end of the day. Passers have to be able to make short passes, yes, but they aren't crossing the ball. They're not lofting the ball. They're typically making short passes to drop it back and then receive the ball back in space. So honestly, guys, my biggest issue with the game so far have been some of the bugs outside of actual gameplay. In pro clubs, for example, there are still hit switch glitches where you get matched up against, your team is wearing like a black jersey, the other team will be wearing like a dark blue jersey, and you switch their kits to make it white, and it switches for you controlling it, but it doesn't switch for all of your teammates, and then you have to forfeit the game because you can't tell who's who. That's an issue. The XP progression system in pro clubs is very messed up right now. That's an issue. The drop-in system in pro clubs is 100% broken. That's an issue. In drop-ins, you'll either play 1 versus 1 with 20 bots, or you'll somehow end up playing 1v5. These are all correctable issues and need to be addressed immediately whenever they patch the game. Now, it's also worth noting that I play on both next gen and old gen. Next gen is obviously much more realistic because of the improvements made to the defensive AI and the thousands of new animations added to the game via hypermotion. So guys, if you want more realistic gameplay, try to get your hands on a new console. I got lucky. I went to Walmart to get a new monitor a couple of weeks ago, and they just had a Series S there at retail, so I picked it up. So if you want a more arcadey version of the game, like a lot of players seem to want, just play the old gen version of the game. It's that simple. Play the game that you want and adapt. At the end of the day, that's all you have to do. I believe this game has the potential to be one of the best releases EA has ever made, but they've just got to start making some patches. So cheers, thanks for watching, guys. If you like the video, please hit like, subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot to me, and it gives me that extra motivation to keep making these videos for you guys. At the end of the day, all I want is to bring the community together and not be another toxic individual within the FIFA community. I want us to enjoy this game together and play it together and have fun and learn from one another. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And let me know what you think about my opinions down in the comments, because guys, I don't know everything. I never am going to claim to know everything. I don't think I'm smarter than anybody that's going to watch this video. I just try and look at things from a different perspective than my own, and allow me to come to a better conclusion than some people. So again, thank you for watching. Peace and love, everyone.
It's quite a challenge. Woozy, I find a balance. Drinking with my lawyer, had sushi with my accountant. Losing touch and puffing a Lucy, that's where I found it. One hit of the cig and I usually feel nostalgic. When I'm on a bend, it's usually when I miss home. Mentally repairing and staring up out the window. Looking for revenge, just to counting Monte Cristo. I'll be counting money by the fistful, youngin'. You don't know nothing about this though, youngin'. Zelda got the mother 6-4 humming. Sip till you slip, get a grip, y'all bugging. I went to the desert, took a trip, no luggage. Saw stars dancing, party in the Mars mansion. As big as Kardashian, is gargantuan. All these kids napping, I'm asking for large ransom. Got the energy documentary, Charles Manson. Big bowl of cereal, up some Cheerios, this some real shit. I think y'all don't really hear me though. Dab you with the left, I'm antibacterial. I'm Big Star Mario, here we go. I don't know a thing, but I'm still a genius. 2021, I wanna fill arenas. Got a shorty who model for Wilhelmina. She ain't Filipina, but she Filipina. I just want my recognition, run it back if that a second listen. Always had it, I just added repetition. Label tracking data like a statistician. Never had the vision that I do, I had to do that independent.